well. And this was a Chrysler dealer here. It's a garage. But there are all these little towns dotted around the islands. And then about 10 years ago it became a city park. But the one thing you'll notice, since it's always been a park and never been developed, on the beach are all these drift logs, and that's a remnant of the early days of Bainbridge Island when this was a center for the timber industry. There were 2 sawmills on the island. In fact, one of them was the largest in the world for a time. So they tow these log rafts to the mills, and often logs would break free and wash up, and then wash up on shore, and the whole island was littered with these logs. They've been salvaged elsewhere on the island, but they've always been left here on this beach.
So what was it about Bainbridge Island that brought people here in the first place then? Fishing?
Timber.
Oh, it was timber.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they built the mills here because there were deep water harbors. And it was so accessible to everywhere in the Puget Sound, so they were logging everywhere that they could get at. And it was easy to tow the log rafts here. I mean, there were mills all over the Puget Sound, but this area was one of the more convenient. I do see
No mills running.
no, not now. There is one bald eagle up there. We'll take a look at it when we get out.
Got a good eye.
I look for it. They keep.
Alright,
they
so
dive
nandito
long
kami
enough.
sa Bainbridge Park. So, huminto kami dito kasi meron kaming nakitang isang agila, pero hindi ko alam kung makikita ninyo kasi napakalayo.
And they just
Ayun siya.
coordinated until.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
And
I didn't even know they ate duck.
So I don't know where we might find the other one on one of the lower branches down there. And
Ayun siya, layo
males
niya.
are about a third
Ayun na.
bigger than the females. I'm guessing that's the
So,
male.
ang sabi ng tour guide, lagi daw siya dyan kasi nag-i-spot siya ng makakain niya. So, tumitingin siya ng makakain niya dito sa malapit-lapit lang dito sa dagat.
So this is a really popular park in the summer, especially for camping, because it's close to Seattle, so you can camp here and get to Seattle.
So is it's a city permit then you have to get for the camping or the
Yeah,
stay?
yeah. You can, no, city.
City.
So yeah, you can reserve a site online. These sites here are all reserved for bikers or kayakers. Part of the marine trail. So the Puget Sound has an extensive marine trail where you can kayak the whole of it, and about every 10 miles. There's a different mill opened on Bainbridge Island in 1850.
120 years.
And so you can see they've all been cut at one end, so that's how we know that they weren't just trees that fell into the sound somehow and got washed up there. Most of them are cedar, old growth cedar. Cedar holds up against moisture pretty well. You can see wild roses growing there.
Yeah. This is a lot of rock.
So this land over here to the north, this is not part of the island, this is part of Kitsap Peninsula. And most of that land there is part of the Fort Madison.
So ito daw, itong mga punong kahoy na to na nandito. So dati unang panahon, dito sila nangunguha ng punong kahoy dahil napakadali sa kanila kasi malapit lang sila sa dagat. Pero dahil sa mga pinagbawal na ang pagpuputo ng mga kahoy, ito hindi na nila inallowed na tumawid pa sa dagat at naiwan na lang dito. So ang taon nito, edad pala nito ng mga punong kahoy na nakalagay dito, na ang sabi niya ay may get 120 years na daw. Pero tignan nyo naman ang tibay, 120 years na, pero ano pa rin, buhay na buhay pa rin.
So when the first white settlers
Wow,
we treated them the same way. They were really roses in there.
So this would be low tide generally.
Yes, this is pretty close to low tide. I can look at my tide app. Are coming. We're not quite at low tide, so low tide today is at 1:45. It'll be minus 1.38. There was also a secret communication station on the island. As part of one of those forts that they had intercepted the Japanese communications. And there was also buried people.
Dead or alive?
I won't say it said dead, but then there was a really high tide. Exposed a lot of the coffins, and they moved them up to the top of the hill. But some of the very first settlers were buried there. Right now, it's just there's a small, sort of community dock and little yacht club up here. Otherwise, there's not much going on in this.
I'm sure it's picturesque though.
Bay. It's quite an extensive bay. It goes a full mile into the interior of the island. And at the end of the island is a place called Hidden Cove. That's the eagles down here. There's a place called Hidden Cove, and it's famous during Prohibition when alcohol was illegal in the United States. It was still legal in Canada, so people would sail up to Canada,
Of course they would.
60 miles away,
Yeah.
and they would sail into Hidden Cove, and that's where the parties were all weekend. It is difficult, and people want to. Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
a contradiction.
Yeah, it's where you're supposed to be.
You're relaxing. You can leave it easy. It's pretty safe.
Alright. So, dito na naman kami sa panibagong destination namin. So, sa ngayon hindi ko pa alam kung anong gagawin namin kasi yung tour guide namin meron pa yata siyang
There's one in the chateau.
sasabihin sa amin parang
I'm not using it.
i-guide niya kami. Pag-uusapan namin kung anong gusto namin pupuntahan.
Packing material so that when they were shipping China from China or other things to the United States, they would pack it in this stuff. It's like styrofoam peanuts. Yeah, no styrofoam peanuts back then. And people would plant their packing material, and they would get these trees.
Now that's real recycling.
It is. It's also famous for being the fastest growing hardwood in the world. It will
Really?
grow 12 feet in the first year.
Wow. So how deep does the root system go, and how far? Do you know?
I do not know how deep it goes. Most of the native trees here, because of the soil conditions that we have, do not go very deep. It's usually hard pan clay, and so the root systems always go very wide rather than deep. They don't have tap roots. But I don't know about this particular tree.
Yeah.
I do know this is a mature one, so obviously at a point it stops growing. Go past the bird marsh. There's a wildflower meadow here, which is really beautiful. And then Seattle either, really highly manicured because he likes a more native looking. So it has the elements of a Japanese garden, but a little wilder. And the land just sat because it was worthless. It's rurally inhabited until 1900 when the Cohen family he had been mayor of Seattle. They bought it to build a summer estate. They didn't do anything with it for 20 years. But his widow and their son chateau, which is that house overlooking Puget Sound. Down. In the field all by itself. It looks like a big Christmas tree. A lot of it I've learned. I spent a lot of time in the mountains, so I know a lot of the mountain plants. I'm no master gardener by a long shot, so I will do my best. Yeah, it is. It is fascinating. So now we're going to enter a native.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, and they sort of draw it out. And the entire forest floor will be just brown and blue, bluebells come out.
You get beautiful.
You get what's called bluebell forest, and this entire area will be just sheer blue.
So here we have native undergrowth. It's salal, which I'm sure you see all over Portland area as well. Yeah. But you can see even in relatively modest rain how impenetrable these forests are because of the undergrowth. When you get into the mountainous areas, so like the Olympic Peninsula, nobody, including any of the native populations, had ever gone into the interior until the late 1800s. They mounted military expeditions to go in the 1880s, and that was the first time anybody had gone into the interior. And there's
Military expedition?
yes, because the native people finally were getting sick of the
I was gonna say,
white
what do
people,
they
and they
do? Yeah.
and they said, "Oh, there's gold up there." They knew how to get rid of them, but it didn't get rid of them. It just brought more of them. Yeah, so they mounted these expeditions, and the accounts are amazing. Like the wildlife in there had zero fear of people.
That's
You could walk
crazy.
right up to an elk and shoot it in the head. I think this on here, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is real. And especially when you get high up.
Nandito na kami sa gitna ng bundok. So sinusundan lang namin yung tour guide namin kung
So this is
anong
native rhododendron.
pwedeng gawin. So
the mountains, the Olympic mountains,
describe lang niya sa amin kung ano yung klaseng mga ano, mga
native.
kahoy or dahon.
You'll see them blooming. They're always exactly the same color. But there's all kinds of other rhododendrons in here that he planted.
All this foliage.
Itong damo to, ang dami sa kapasulan nito. Ang dami sa kapasulan. Sa alog.
We'll maybe get one snow here. Yeah, being close to the water.
Well, the rest of it, you know, you might get one dumping
Yeah.
in 5 years, which
We're pretty consistent, one snowfall a year. and it shuts things down. You can't get around the island because it's so hilly.
Yeah.
You know. So this one of the first things he did was water features, and they serve two purposes: habitats for waterfowl, and the other was irrigation. So a lot of these plants require irrigation in the summer, and there's no piped water here, so it all comes from these various ponds. So he just dammed up little streams that would flow into the sound. Yeah, so it existed even before the ferns. And you'll see it growing in wet areas.
I was going to say, my office is on the side of Fano Creek in the Portland area, and this is everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yeah. It grows in ditches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything close to water.
Yeah. It's very No, just the eastern side of the state. So these trees here are alder trees. This is an alder grove. It's also a native tree. Tends to be one of the first trees that grow up in a disturbed area. So once you logged alders, are sort of first generation trees. They don't live that long either. Little garter snakes.
Garter?
Yeah, they're very harmless. No, just the eastern side of the state. So these trees here are alder trees. This is an alder grove. It's also a native tree. Tends to be one of the first trees that grow up in a
So is there a natural spring or stream that's kind of like?
They're all over the island. Just because it's this hard clay and it fractures and it creates these seeps. Some are seasonal, some are year-round. And so even though there aren't really rivers on the island, there's lots of these little streams. And every little ravine has a stream.
They'll end up somewhere like this.
Yeah, and so typically they're not dammed.
Yeah.
And all he did was, there's a few here that he dammed up. Yeah. So we're going to come to the wildflower garden, and this is the only new garden that was created after Wardell passed away, and the idea was to create.
Wow, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, they just
They got fox.
Seriously.
they just do the foxglove.
Yeah.
I like what they, the German word for foxglove? In Germany call it Fingerhut.
Bingo.
Yeah, finger hat. Because each one looks like a little hat and you can stick on your finger.
Yeah.
I don't know where foxglove comes from.
Yeah,
But
me neither.
foxes wear gloves? I don't
Yeah.
know. Yes, yeah, you don't want to use them. But they grow around. All these purple flowers are fine. They still keep going in the mountain.
Hello. Nakita.
But as I say, because he wasn't in the flowers and because the idea of pollinators.
Ang ganda ng mga ng mga bulaklak dito sa bundok. Wild flowers.
Everything else, the trail previously just sudden all the birds would return to the pond. And during the day, there were no birds. So, yeah. So they moved the trail away, and they put these little floating islands in there as nesting habitat.
You can hear the birds now.
Yeah. Hello, bird.
Very quiet today, hardly any breeze.
Now, that's how nature should be. You listen, just stand there and listen. You know, I know where we kind of, we always make too much noise. You know, stand there and listen to the birds and the whatever.
Yeah. So one thing I love especially about living here, and I'm sure for you, Willamette, is how quiet it is most of the time. And it's extraordinarily dark here too at night. They have a light ordinance on the island because we have an observatory.
and then we thought, well, they kept putting it off, obviously because of COVID. And so when it fell on this weekend, it's like, well, then we just need to make a 3-day weekend of it. And so here we are.
Slightly different from the quietness, though.
Yeah, ears still ringing a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
I worked at an arena for
Yours good.
6 years. I worked for a hockey team, a professional hockey team that owned the arena, so they had concerts all the time. You know, everything from Deep Purple to Elvis.
Yeah.
And I would work the backstage, and my ears would ring.
Yeah, you have to wear earplugs.
So this is the ravine, and you can actually probably see a little stream down there. I think it's a little more over this way. And so that's what they dammed up.
See it right underneath here.
Yeah, that's what they dammed up the creek.
Isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, there it goes.
Had to be short.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
kind of like
Oh, there.
city park
Just a
No, I-
forest
yeah.
bed down there.
in Portland called
This is,
Tryon Park.
yeah, Tryon
Most of it
Park.
is
This is very
sort of
similar to Tryon Park areas in Portland.
Big ravines and stuff like that, and trails through it. Part of the